Come, all ye faithful, joyful and triumphant. Oh, come ye to Bethlehem. Come and behold him, born the King of angels. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him, Christ the Lord. God from God, light from light eternal. Lo, he abhors not the virgin's womb. Very God begotten, not created. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him, Christ the Lord. Sing, choirs of angels, sing in exaltation. Sing, all ye citizens of heaven above. Glory to God, or glory in the highest. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him, Christ the Lord. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him, Christ the Lord.
So we just call this a journey of hope. And in a minute, Celia is going to read from Matthew's Gospel. So we're going to be looking at that today. I'm going to be telling you a little bit about the journey of the wise men. And then Kerry is going to be sharing after that something of her journey to meeting Jesus. So that's where we're going today. So it's all about these three wise men, or three astrologers, or even maybe three kings. We don't really know. There may be some combination of all of that, but these three figures from a royal court, from a king, came to meet, looking at today. So if you've got a Bible, you might like to follow it. It's in Matthew chapter 2, verses 1 to 13.
So this is headed "The Visit of the Wise Men." A bit out of the picture. Now, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, in the days of Herod the king, behold, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem, saying, "Where is he who has been born King of the Jews? For we saw his star when it rose, and we've come to worship him." When Herod the king heard this, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. And assembling all the chief priests and the scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Christ was to be born. They told him, "In Bethlehem of Judea, for so it is written by the prophet. And you, O Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for from you shall come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel." Then Herod summoned the wise men secretly and ascertained from them what time the star had appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, "Go and search diligently for the child, and when you have found him, bring me word, that I too may come and worship him." After listening to the king, they went on their way. And behold, the star that they had seen when it rose went before them, until it came to rest over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they rejoiced exceedingly with great joy. And going into the house, they saw the child with Mary his mother, and they fell down and worshipped him. And then, opening their treasures, they offered him gifts of gold and frankincense and myrrh. But being warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they departed to their own country by another way.
Great. Thank you, C. That's a great story of these men, maybe three, maybe more of them, we don't really know, making that journey from some great city in the east westward, because they'd seen this star over what looked like Israel. And 600 years before that, the prophet Micah had foretold that from Bethlehem, as we just read, shall come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel. A great shepherd king, the Messiah, would be born in Bethlehem. And down the years, all Israel, especially those in Bethlehem, waited and waited and waited. And maybe some might have given up. But I guess some of them also kept the hope alive. No, he'll come. One day the shepherd king will come. There's a verse in Proverbs that says, "Hope deferred makes the heart sick, but a desire fulfilled is a tree of life." And I guess for some it was a hope deferred, but for those who are waiting, it was going to be something brilliant. And the Christmas story is really the story of the hope of many hundreds of years finally realized. So there was waiting and hoping going on in Israel, but meanwhile, hundreds of miles to the east, the wise astrologers in the court of a non-Jewish king spotted this strange bright star in the heavens, and it was west of them, and they asked themselves, because they were astrologers, what did this mean? And eventually some of them said, well, it seems to be roughly over Israel, so I guess it's announcing that a new king of the Jews has been born. We must go and worship him. And before the time of Micah, an Arabian queen heard of the wisdom of the king of Israel, and she said to herself, I must travel west to meet him and learn from him. And she brought gifts of gold and incense, and she was the Queen of Sheba, and she traveled in hope of meeting King Solomon. And hundreds of years later, we have this story, which is another caravan of important figures traveling west with gifts to another king of Israel. And so they set out on their journey to meet a king, and they traveled in hope. But when they doubted, they just said, well, there's a star up there. The star is alive. The star is telling us something. The star is signifying the birth of this king. And before they met the king, they arrived eventually in Israel after many miles of traveling, many hot days, many cold nights, and eventually they got to the banks of the Jordan. They crossed the Jordan and they came into the country of Israel. And before they met the king that they'd come to see, they met another king, which we just read about. King of the Jews, said King Herod, but I'm king of the Jews. Who is this imposter? Who is this new king that you've come to see? And he wasn't too pleased about this. And Matthew, in the reading we just had, he presents this story as a clash of two kings, of two kingdoms. One is insecure, scheming, murderous. He's deeply worried about his authority. And then the other king is tiny, vulnerable, but a shepherd king in waiting. And he's waiting quietly asleep. quite a contrast. This new king has arrived, and the old one is pretty angry. And would the traveling men, these wise men, would they be sort of cowed by one and hand Jesus over to him? Or would they continue on their journey faithfully and come and worship him as they'd intended? Of course, we know the answer, don't we? They worshipped him. And Matthew, the writer, can't contain himself. He says, when they saw the star, they rejoiced exceedingly with great joy. That's not sort of little, that's not just a bit of joy, that's joy. That's great joy. That's not sort of a quiet relief that they'd finally made it. That's an exuberant rejoicing. It's not a quiet, it's not these sort of quiet, respectful kings just smiling about it. Oh, yeah, we got there. This is a bit more than, this is dancing magi. This is crowns and turbans flying. It's shouts of joy. It's, we found him. We were right all along. The King of the Jews has been born. Way! Joy, joy. A desire fulfilled is a tree of life. And I think these wise men experienced something of that. And then he goes on, and when they saw the child with Mary, his mother, they fell down and worshipped. You know, that's not sort of respectfully bowing their heads, hands clasped, saying a quiet prayer. That's, they fell down on their face, prostrate before this baby who they recognized as a king. It just abandoned worship. Journeys had come to an end. Their hopes had been fulfilled. Their dreams had been realized. We found him. They were just beside themselves in joy and worship. We found the king. We found the shepherd king who will love his people, who will maybe one day give his life for them. We found God come to earth in the form of a baby. It was a time of joy, a time of worship. And you know, there's just so much about these men that I really like. I find so appealing. They were, you know, they saw this star in the sky, and they were willing to trust their interpretation of the meaning of it. And they said, no, we need to go to Israel. And they went out and they bought expensive gifts. They got a big caravan of people, and I guess some of their mates thought they were mad. So they resisted the ridicule of others, and they set off on an uncertain journey to worship the king of a foreign, possibly enemy country, enemy power. Amazing thing to do, really. And then when they get there, they ignore Herod. We're not taking any notice of them. And then when they find him, they just leap with exuberant joy and worship with great abandon. Don't you just love them? These three kings from Orient are, or wise men, whoever they were, and they're just a brilliant example to us that we too can come and find Jesus. They were a bit of a model. They went on a journey to meet the King of Kings, and they were non-Jews come to visit the King of the Jews. So Jesus wasn't to be just a shepherd ruler for Israel. He was to be the shepherd king of all men and women, everywhere in the world. And he wants to lead us to come close to him, to draw worship from him, as much as he did for these wonderful wise men. And I believe today Jesus calls all of us to make that journey towards him. The New Testament is clear: seek and you'll find. And I don't know where you are on that journey. But God's calling all of us, I believe. And so we've got that picture, if you like. That's our first journey this morning, of these wise men traveling faithfully westwards towards the setting sun and looking for the king. So to bring this story right up to date, we're just going to listen to Kerry now, who's going to tell us about her journey, as how she found Jesus, just like these wise men found him.
Hello everyone, I'm Kerry, and I'm so thankful to have the opportunity to share my story with you. Just a little background on myself. I grew up in a non-Christian family. My parents took me to Sunday school and youth clubs because they were fun. Kind of sparked an early interest in believing in God. Through the difficult times in my teenage years, I prayed for help, usually the Lord's Prayer, because that's all I'd learned in school, that's all I knew. And I guess I didn't recognise God's help at the time. Quite often felt like God wasn't hearing me because people around me were suffering. My sister was ill and my dad was ill. My early 20s were harder than my teens. I went to university without a plan. Good idea. And by my second year, I'd got into a lot of debt. And my family was struggling more and more back home. I think by my third year, I was really down to my last, £20 to last me the month. And I just remember sobbing, feeling like giving up, because things weren't going to plan and things were unwinding. And one day the university pastor approached me and asked me if I would like a grant, and I said yes. He didn't know me that well. He knew of me, and he'd come to some of the performances we'd done and things. I did performing arts at uni, and he didn't know me, and he offered me this grant, and I said yes, and that got me through my final year at university, and I graduated, and I kind of saw that as the sign that okay, maybe I'm in the right place at the right time. I was working as an entertainer, and 5 years later I met my husband, and both of us were in a lot of debt still. From university, we were still in a lot of debt, but we both wanted to move forward, and because God had helped me at university, I thought, I kind of had hopes that things would improve, and they did. And eventually we managed to, by working hard, we managed to work off those debts and get through that really tough time together. My first daughter was born, and when I think back to that year, I have mixed emotions. It was a very happy year, at times, lots of happiness, lots of joy, but also it was probably one of the toughest years of my life. The birth was very traumatic, and I remember being on the ward a couple of days later, recovering, and I was just watching all these mums leave the hospital with their babies and how much they were glowing and how happy they looked, and I was feeling like, why aren't I feeling like that? My daughter had been born with leg problems, and she needed treatment, and it was really distressing and emotionally draining watching her go through that treatment as well. So the both of us were just really going through such a tough time. And as the months went by, physically I wasn't getting any better, and mentally I was just feeling lower and lower. And in front of family and friends I was absolutely fine. I'm usually a really positive person, and I know how to put on a front as well, but behind closed doors I was crying every day. I found it really hard to play, and just kept comparing myself to other parents and thinking, what's wrong with me? I felt so guilty, and I know now that I was suffering with depression, but at the time I didn't know a name for it. I just felt really rubbish about myself. And I guess if one lesson I learned from university really was to just ask God for help, and I did. In those moments I was just at my wit's end, really. I didn't know really what else to do, and I just prayed quite a simple prayer, like, just, God, help me. I don't know what to do or what to say, just help me. One day I saw an advert for Carterton Community Church, and they were holding this free car wash event, and I thought I'd go along, but I parked as far away from the building as I could, because I wanted to kind of spy on people first and check it out. And I met Ruth, who gave me a really nice welcome. It was really refreshing to have someone who wasn't judgmental and who listened, and I left feeling really encouraged about being a good mum. And so I decided to go back on a Sunday. The first Sunday I remember feeling really nervous in case my daughter was going to be too noisy, but I quickly learned it didn't matter. There were other noisy children there, and I didn't ever think I'd be a proper Christian because I hadn't been brought up as a Christian. I didn't know my Bible, didn't know a lot of the words that people were using, didn't know what they meant. And after a while of going there, through the songs and the praying in the sermons, my depression just started to lift. I distinctively remember the day when I looked back and thought, I haven't felt depressed all week. Something's changing, you know. There isn't this heavy cloud above my head anymore, but I was still struggling with anger, and I was really snappy. And I remember asking for prayer at the end of one of the Sundays with Kirsty and Matt, and asking them to pray for me, and I sobbed my eyes out and let everything go and let all my emotions out and told them everything and told God everything. I gave God absolutely everything because I thought I've got nothing else to lose. And they prayed for me, and they told me that it's okay to not be the perfect parent, and it's okay. God loves you when you feel like you're failing. God still loves you. After that prayer, my life changed. I'd given all my worries to God, and God had started working inside me to transform me, and I was healed from my depression. So I was having much better relationships with people. I was looking after myself again, and I felt really worthy of God's love. I gave my life to Jesus in 2018, and I was baptized. I loved getting to know everyone at church, enjoyed watching my daughter there on a Sunday. I went on to have another daughter, and we started, I was asked to help start the toddler group Pufflings, and I guess the silver lining of my story so far is that now I get to help other parents who are going through those difficult early years of parenting, and I can really see how God has used my weakest moments to for his plan. And yeah, I feel so much joy that God had that plan for me, and now looking back I can see how God was looking out for me the whole time.
Isn't that a great story? That's a great story of a journey, if you like, from debt and suffering from depression, quite deep depression, to an occasion when Kerry met Jesus, came face to face, like the shepherds met Jesus all those years ago. Wise men met Jesus, so we can meet Jesus as well. And Kerry did, and she gave her life to Jesus, by which she means, I want to follow you for the rest of my life. And it's now being used to help other people from out of, if you like, her own experience. And I think that's a tremendous story. So thank you, Kerry, for sharing that. It takes a bit of courage, actually, to tell your story in front of a load of people, some of whom you don't know. But some of you know Kerry very well, I know, from Pufflings and the Whiteham House. And I'm sure that's an encouragement just to hear her story. And I hope that's an encouragement to you as well, to ask the question, where am I on my journey towards Jesus? You may be on the starting line. I've heard of him. I just want to start to find out more about him. You might have started a few steps down the line. Something has attracted you, like the star attracted the wise men, and you've begun to walk in his direction. Maybe you're not on the starting line. Maybe it's something, the whole thing of being a Christian is something you've rejected. I don't know where you are, but I'd encourage you to begin to take a few steps on that journey, because when you meet Jesus, then he gives you cause for great joy and reason to worship him and come to him and to love him. And to that end, we're doing, we've got a course called Alpha. I think John might say a few things about that in a minute, which we're going to be running in the new year. And that's really just an opportunity to ask any questions you have got about the Christian faith in a friendly environment, and to watch some excellent videos. So thank you for listening, and it's nearly Christmas. Have a great day on Friday. Happy Christmas, and I hope it's just I hope it's a good time despite all the stuff we're having to face. God can still break through in the darkest times, like that star, if you like.
Well, thank you all for joining us this morning. It has been really great fun going through these last 4 weeks together, journeying through Advent, looking at peace, joy, hope and love. And we will hopefully see some of you out at the homestead to sing carols, maybe some of you out there on Christmas Eve and Christmas morning. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.